What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of New Jersey. This is season 14, episode 12. I know I'm not on camera. My head hurts, but we got to get this video out. So let's get into it. So y'all know sometimes before we get into it, we get a little spicy, just a little bit. And we finally got confirmation that they are going to reboot the series for Real Housewives of Orange County. So I saw this on All True Tea's page, but they got it from Bravo Cocktails. Now, I don't know if it was in the drama video that I did or if it was in another spicy corner for Real Housewives of New Jersey, but I remember talking about how Bravos and Cocktails posted that they got tea that they're trying to do a reboot for the entire season, that they're not planning on bringing anybody back, and if they do plan on bringing people back, they're really only looking at Dolores, Jennifer Fessler, possibly Teresa, and possibly Rachel Fuda. Well, the other day, Andy was on Andy Cohen Live, and a caller called in, and Andy basically responded to the lady saying, girl, we're rebooting. If you want to reboot, we're going to reboot it. So Bravos and Cocktails posted this on their page. It says, listening to Andy Cohen Live right now, and Andy just said, we are rebooting RHONJ. There will be all new faces. They go on to say, I didn't think he would say it like that previously. I think they said, I don't think he has said it like that previously. They said he has said to a caller live. And then the caption that they posted of this says, we didn't want to be right about this. Call me crazy, but I still very much am enjoying RHONJ. Now let me play the audio of that conversation.
Story that's so old, the Joe Gorga story, like, don't even get me started on that, man.
Okay. All right. Well, yes, we are rebooting the show. Thank you, Joanne. We're going to reboot it. We're going to do something different.
It would be great because, like I said, Teresa will always get in trouble. That's how she is.
Okay.
But the other one's boring. Very boring storylines. Their storyline is only Teresa.
Okay. So you want Teresa to stay on the show?
Teresa is the show. Like I said, Teresa, she'll find.
So listening to this, I don't know, because Andy just sounded over it. He sounded so over Joanne. He was sick of talking to her. But if I do take what he said as him like confirming that there is a reboot, I'm okay with that. Like, has this season been trash? Not really. It's just been very like meh. Like, it hasn't been good, but it hasn't been great. It's just been very like, okay, that's cute. It hasn't been giving. And with how bad the ratings have tanked, I think they want to reboot. Honestly, what I've been saying, like I have been saying, is just give Teresa her own show. I promise you, them tree stumpers, the tree huggers, the tree fans will follow Teresa wherever she goes, and then bring in new women and see what happens. Because I think even though I do like certain people on the cast, it really might be time for them to get a new cast. And granted, I don't really see it for Danielle or Rachel, but I do feel like it's kind of messed up if they do reboot it and they don't get asked back. But if they're trying to tap into a wealthier demographic, such as, like I've been telling y'all, the WAGs, the wealthy wives and girlfriends of athletes, Rachel and Danielle can go. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll see. But I definitely think they're going to put New Jersey on the show for a while until they can figure out what to do with it. And I pretty much would be okay with that. But let's get into this review. All right, y'all, so let's get into this episode. So it opens up and we see Jennifer and Bill, and it was actually like a really cute scene of them on the couch together. I know a lot of people don't like Jennifer. I like New Nose Jennifer. Is she problematic? Yes, but I enjoy her interactions with Bill when it's just them because I do see that he cares about her. I think it's actually quite disgusting how much people get off on the fact that they think her husband doesn't like her. Like, I don't like that. It's something about it makes me feel icky. So I like this scene where they were sitting down laughing, and it was a cute scene. And I noticed that beyond the show, Bill and Jennifer seem to be happy. So maybe her not being on the show will actually be way better for her marriage and other relationships, okay? So they are sitting on the couch. She tells him about how she had a good time at the slumber party. She talks about the whole milking the prostate thing. He was looking at her like, girl, now why would you say that? And she then talks about how Dolores invited everyone to go on this cash trip or the group trip to the Berkshires. And she was like, I'm excited and stuff like that. But she was like, I talked to Dan. She was like, I didn't talk to Danielle, but she's like, honestly, I don't think Danielle is capable or mature enough for her to move on because, they had their issues. And then the whole, like, her falling off the cake thing. And I know some people are like, oh, Jennifer's not taking accountability. She's not. She is not. But one thing I can give Jennifer is that she is still being like, oh, I can move on from this. And Danielle is not getting that into her head that, like, girl, if you see the writing on the wall, the network wants you guys to move on from things. I'm not saying don't be mad at the lady, because you can't tell somebody to, like, move on. But, like, if you still want to be on this show, and I know you do, because ever since that resurfaced clip of you and Britney Spears popped up, and then I saw you reenacting it, girl, I know you want this. Then I need Danielle to change her mindset and be like, I may not like Jennifer. I can despise her. I can think she is a demon from the ninth pits of hell. But if I want to keep this check and I want to keep staying on reality TV, then I'm going to have to suck it up. And it's like, Danielle doesn't get that. And that's low-key why I'm like, she don't do it for me, because it's just kind of like, girl, read the room. You not reading the room. So we then get this scene of Margaret and Jennifer Fessler meeting up to get brunch. And while they're there, Jennifer Fessler lets Margaret know, like, hey girl, Teresa is inviting a group of the girls to go sit down at her house with her attorney, and they're going to be telling us about your involvement in Louis' case. And Margaret said, girl, what? And so they do a flashback of Teresa pretty much FaceTiming everybody, inviting them to come to her house to hear the information. So Margaret is just like, the same lawyer that got you locked up 9 years ago, as well as the same lawyer that's office is next to a meth clinic. Because she was like, my lawyer office is on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. I said, okay, I caught that shade. That was clear shade. I said, okay, Margaret. I said, not the meth clinic, girl. So Margaret is irritated. She is so irritated by this. So she asked Jennifer Fessler who all is going. And Jennifer Fessler is like, Jennifer, Aiden, Jackie, Dolores, and Danielle. And so Margaret immediately calls Danielle and immediately calls Dolores. She calls Dolores first. And she's like, girl, you really gonna go to this? Like, we supposed to be friends. Like, you're really gonna go to this? And Dolores is like, yeah, like, she's my friend. Nothing she really says to me is going to change my opinion. And Jennifer Fessler jumps into the conversation, and she's like, Margaret, she's basically saying that she's just going there to support Teresa, but nothing that's being told to her is going to change how she feels about you. And Margaret is like, girl, no. She's like, no. Like, if you were my friend, you wouldn't go. But Dolores is like, girl, I'm going to go either way. And I feel like Margaret has to understand that, like, yeah, Dolores is really loyal to you, but she also has some type of loyalty to Teresa. They've known each other since they were like 14 or 13 years old. And they're in their 50s, almost 60s. That's decades of friendship. It may not be the best of friendship, but there's still a level of, like, loyalty and respect that I think Dolores feels like she has to Teresa, that she was going to hear her out. And so Margaret is over it. When I tell you Margaret is over it, Margaret is over it. So then she calls Danielle and basically tells Danielle the same thing. Like, girl, why would you go to this? And Danielle basically was like, well, Teresa asked me, and I'm just going to hear her out. That's it. I don't even know what she really going to be talking about. I'm just going to go hear her out. So Margaret is just like, this girl is obsessed with me. I'm over this. This is stupid. She ain't got nothing on me. It's whatever. So then Jennifer Fessler, peeping how upset Margaret is, decides, you know what? Let me text Teresa and tell her I'm not going. She was like, I talked to Margaret. Like, the text message, I think, was like, I talked to Margaret. And the more that I thought about it, girl, I don't think I should go. Margaret is my friend, but thanks for reaching out or whatever. And Margaret was irritated because she was like, girl, don't even add that last part talking about, unfortunately, thanks for reaching out. Like, leave that crap out. And the funny thing about it is, I told y'all, I goes up for Margarita, Pigtails, Trout Mouth Josephs. I enjoy her. I do. She is one of my favorite housewives, but I've always said the same thing. Everybody's hands in this group is dirty. Like, Margaret isn't a saint. Teresa is no saint. Like, everybody's hands are dirty. Everyone's been like playing in the mud. And you can always tell when Margaret is nervous about being exposed is she gets very like frantic, because she did the same thing with the whole Evan rumors when Teresa and Jackie were at her house. And now she's doing it with this, because girl, if you truly didn't care and you didn't care, you wouldn't have been readily ready to like call your people and be like, if you go to that, girl, I'm done with you. Like, you basically told them, girl, pick a side. Pick a side. Okay, pick a side right now. And they pretty much told you, girl, we're still gonna go, but we rock with you. That's basically it. So the scene ends there. So we find out in this episode, the boys are having two separate events. So Louie's having an event and Joe Gorga is having an event. Majority of the men went to Joe Gorga's place. The rest of them, which was just Bill and Paulie, went to Louie's place. And so before everyone gets there, we see Louie's father and his oldest son and Teresa in the kitchen. And Teresa's pretty much telling him Jennifer Fessler isn't coming. Margaret got to her. And she starts to try to explain to Louie's dad what's going on. And she's just like, I'm trying to expose these people and let them know how dirty Margaret is, that she's been playing in my relationship for the past 3 years. Like, I'm trying to let people know what it is. Like, she really has been digging and doing things of that nature for his exes. So I just wanted people to know the truth. And the father ends up saying, like, what they say, dirt always rises to the top. So eventually it's going to come out. We end up finding out that Louis did win, or not even win. They basically didn't grant the restraining order. Either the girl didn't have enough proof to prove that Louis was either stalking or harassing her, or Louis had enough proof to disprove what she was saying. But the judge did not grant the restraining order. So Teresa is breathing a sigh of relief, because she was like, okay, for the past 6 months, we've been dealing with this. And you could tell that Teresa is really stressed, because normally Teresa does not look this frail, but like, she looks like she going through it. And honestly, it's because of that man, girl. It's because of that man. So then we end up seeing Margaret's Joe Gorga, and John at Joe and Melissa's house, and they're preparing for the men that are coming to his house. But before everyone gets there, Joe gets a phone call from Margaret, basically Margaret telling him all the stuff that she got a rundown of from Jennifer Fessler downloading Margaret on like everything that Teresa is doing. People were upset because John basically called Teresa and Louis train wrecks in front of Joe, and he didn't say anything. I need y'all to get it through your skulls that they are an estranged family. They have no loyalty to each other anymore. So Teresa is going to sit by while people talk bad about Joe, and Joe's going to sit by while people talk bad about Teresa at this point. Deal with it, live with it, move on. So we see Bill and Paulie pull up to Louie's house. Honestly, I would have went to Joe's party, because Louie basically had them film a podcast. And I said, girl, what? This is what this is. This is what this is. I'd have been like, I did not come here to film a podcast, bro. I came here to drink, eat, and have a good time. But they filmed it. They did devotionals. I don't get why Louis does that. He thinks it's him. I don't know why he thinks doing these like motivational videos and stuff is like so, like, it makes people like endearing towards him, but it doesn't. It comes off weird, and it's weird. Louis, stop doing it. Stop doing it. So then we see Frank and Frank and what's his name? Jennifer Fessler's husband pull up. They're having a good time. John brings up the fact that Bill and Polly aren't there. Joe brings up how he just doesn't understand why Bill and Polly don't see how much of a loser and a scumbag Louis is, but it is what it is. He actually calls Polly and Bill scumbags because he's like, it takes a scumbag to know a scumbag, but he's just kind of like, I don't get why they don't see it. Frank was gonna go, but he decided to come to Joe's house, which I would have did the same thing. They look like they was having fun. The only thing I don't like about this coming out of Joe's mouth is Joe and Louis to me are both the same. They're both fraudsters. And they both speak to women that they don't like horribly. We see him as he speaks about Jennifer. We saw him speak about Danielle in the same way. His cousins Kathy and Rosie the same way. And Louis probably does the same thing. So it's just kind of like, you're saying all these things about this man, but I believe you and this man are more alike than you want to admit. I love the fact that we have never brought to light how Joe was stealing people's renovation work and trying to push it off as his own, that he's been banned from several hardware stores in New Jersey because of like him frauding jobs and scamming people. Like, I'll say allegedly, but like a lot of people in New Jersey have had proof of that, but allegedly, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like, it takes a fraud to know a fraud, because don't get me wrong, I don't like Louis. I think Louis is taking Teresa through the ringer, and you can see it in her body, but he gives off snakes oil salesman. He gives off fraudster, but I don't want to hear moral superiority or see some, like, I'm not giving Joe that, because Joe has some type of moral superiority complex when it comes to Louis and his situation with Teresa, when I'm just like, you're just as dirty as the rest of them, basically. So they do the bone marrow shots, and then they sit down to play poker, but then everybody notices that John is nowhere to be found. He in the bathroom having an allergic reaction, going in an anaphylactic shock. Everybody in that room is stupid because they didn't know what anaphylactic shock meant. And John is like, his eyes are puffy, his eyes are watering, he's complaining about he can't breathe. Thank goodness for Margaret's Joe, because he was the only one that cared, that was like, don't call Rachel, call 911. Like, he was trying to get John to understand how severe this situation is. You got Frank and Joe putting water on his face, and I'm like, that is not helping. Someone call 911. They then have the paramedics come. Production finally steps in. You then see Melissa. She's like, what's going on? Then you have John acting like he doesn't want to talk to the paramedics, and then you got Joe basically telling John, if you don't sit your big ass down and let the paramedics evaluate you, like, you have a family, stop being stupid trying to act so hard. And I was happy, as someone who has had a severe allergic reaction, I was so irritated by this scene. I know people thought it was funny, but I was irritated because it really feels like someone is stabbing you in your lungs when you're having an allergic reaction. It feels like someone's foot is on your chest, and as you breathe, it hurts. It hurts. And him trying to act all hard about it, it was so bad for me that I had to be in the hospital for almost an entire day as they gave me a breathing treatment. They took x-rays of my lungs to make sure ain't nothing collapsed. Like, they were worried about me. So I'm just sitting here like, yo, big ass, sit down. And you could tell that it was bad because they had to give him oxygen, because his airways was probably, but like, it really does feel like your throat is closing up. And the fact that he was sitting there looking, I wanted to punch him. Because do I like John? Not really. I'm not too fond of Rachel, pretty much indifferent to her right about now. But I'm just like, you're trying to be so hard and you have 3 kids and a wife. Make better decisions, yo, big bald-headed dummy. Oh, that pissed me off. I was like, if you don't sit down and let the paramedics do their job. So it's the next day, and we're at Polly and Dolores' place. And Dolores basically lets Polly know, girl, the place that we were supposed to go to, it burned down. So Polly ended up saying it must be an omen that y'all don't need to be around each other. And Dolores is kind of upset because she's like, I was really hoping that this cash trip was actually going to bring everybody together, and this house was perfect. Like, it was big enough for all of us, and there was also a spare area where people, like, for 2 women to be not a part of the house but still, you know, in the mix of everything. And so she ends up telling Polly about Margaret calling her about Teresa, and Dolores basically reiterates what she's been saying, that nothing Teresa can really say is going to change her opinion about Margaret. And then Polly tells Dolores about what he did with Louis and Bill, and they did the devotional thing for the women. And she was like, well, tell me what you said. He was like, I don't know, I don't remember what I said. She was like, well, send me the recording. He was like, you're going to have to ask him. But it does kind of suck that they didn't have a cash trip, because it does seem like everybody was open to like healing. And maybe if they weren't in New Jersey, what happened at the end of the season, which is coming this Sunday, wouldn't have happened. But who really knows? Because at this point, it seemed like everybody trying to catch fades. So the last scene of the episode is the women who said that they were going to go to Teresa's goes to Teresa's house. And so we see her lawyer, we see Danielle, we see Jennifer, we see Jackie, and we see Dolores, and we see Gia. Gia sitting at the table, and Teresa is just in shambles. Like, Jennifer even makes a comment where she was like, girl, you looking thin. And she was like, we just need to get to the bottom of this. Danielle is like irritated that Jennifer is there, but I'm like, girl, you knew she was coming. And so then the lawyer pretty much says that while they were doing their discovery and all of this stuff, they found out that Margaret was in fact in contact with the ex that he's been going back and forth with. You know, Jackie, I think, is like a lawyer or some sorts. She pretty much says she thinks there's a gag order in place where Louis can't speak about this ex and vice versa, and that they've both been suing each other back and forth, just a very toxic relationship. And so Teresa feels like this is vindication, that basically for the past 3 years she's been saying that Margaret has been speaking to Louis' exes, and that we have proof that she's been doing that. Well, everybody else at the table is like, girl, this is kind of a dud, you know. But then you have Dolores saying in her confessional, this isn't that big of a deal, but it does make me question Margaret, because for the past 3 years, Margaret has been saying she hasn't been talking to these women, but now there's doubt. And a lot of people were like, this wasn't really tea. But I think it is for Teresa, because for the past couple of years, Teresa has been going on and on about Margaret talking to Louis' exes, Margaret putting stories out there, and Margaret being like, oh, you're crazy, you're obsessed. But now they do have proof that Margaret was actually in conversation with this lady enough for them to subpoena her and for her to decline. So it's not really a big revelation, but I think it gives Teresa some sense of comfort that she was like, I was telling y'all the truth. So then, what's it called? So then they asked Jackie, well, did Margaret ever say that she spoke to the exes, or did you remember? And Jackie was like, no, she never talked to me about the exes like that. So then Jennifer was like, well, you know, Margaret said we were messed up for talking to Laura, but here she is digging into people's past. And so next thing you know, Danielle is starting to kind of put two and two together, basically realizing everybody in this group is dirty and their hands are dirty, because she was like, how is what Jennifer and Teresa did not the same as what Margaret was doing, contacting Louis' exes? Because she was like, last year, you know, Margaret fell out with Laura, and Laura started telling Jennifer and Teresa things. Now you have Margaret pretty much going and talking to Louis' exes and getting tea on Louis. So like I've been saying, everybody's hands are dirty, but this really wasn't tea. So next thing you know, there's a knock at the door, knocking at the door, and it is a funeral arrangement, and it's from Margaret, and it says this: Dear Teresa and James, sorry for the loss of your dignity. Love, 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 Margaret. And everybody's like, girl, what? Teresa sends the man away, tells him to take the funeral arrangement, and Danielle is shook. She thinks what Margaret did was gangster, and she is gagged and goop. And you can kind of tell that Dolores is a little irritated, because then she lets the ladies know that the house that they were supposed to go to for the cash trip, it burned down, so we can't go. So she basically is like, but I want us to have one final dinner where we all talk to each other and get our grievances out and just say how we truly feel about one another. Now, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I wasn't gagged by this funeral arrangement. Do I think Margaret is a top tier housewife? Yes, I told y'all I goes up for Margaret, Margarita, trout mouth, Pigtails Joseph. But because everybody hyped this up so much online, I was really expecting to be gagged. The way Margaret gagged me this season was that whole situation that she did with Jackie and having Joe tap on that phone for Dolores to read it. But this wasn't gag worthy to me. Did I think it was funny? Yes, I thought I cackled at it, but I think it also showed that Margaret was pressed. Because if you truly didn't care, then you wouldn't have to send anything to that lady. But in all reality, Teresa's revelation wasn't really a big revelation, because I actually did agree with Teresa like a few years ago that I could see Margaret talking to other people's exes, because Margaret, like they've all been saying, has tea on everybody. She has an arsenal, and I believe it. That's why a lot of them don't want to go against that lady. And if you can't take the heat from Margaret, you might as well join her. But it's about to come to an end, and I'm down for this coming to an end at this point. We got Margaret on Instagram pretty much taking a picture of the bouquet saying the death of dignity, RIP, #RHONJ. So I honestly think they all realize that the writing is on the wall and they're not coming back. And I think Teresa was the only one, it is the only one trying to save her job, where she posted that letter. So she will always have a relationship with Bravo, because the statement that she posted about, fans leaving their families alone, several other housewives retweeted it. Everybody else on this show is not thinking about saving their job. Even Melissa on Watch What Happens Live was talking slick at the mouth, and you could tell that Andy was irritated by it. And I'm like, girl, do you not want to be on this show, or do you want to be on this show? Because anytime Melissa talks about the reboot, she talks about it in a way like she's going to be a part. And I'm like, girl, I don't think any of y'all are going to be a part of this. And if, like I said in the Spicy Corner, it's true that Andy is rebooting this whole entire cast, then everybody is out of a job except Teresa, because I believe Teresa will always have a relationship with this show. Because y'all got to think about it. Teresa gave us her life. I don't go up for Teresa, but we saw Teresa get arrested. Both her parents die, have all her kids like on this show pretty much, except I think Gia. Yeah, except Gia and maybe one other of her children. Saw her ex-husband get deported. We saw her come out of jail and get remarried. They are always going to keep Teresa around. And it is what it is. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. Remember to be bravely authentic, and definitely hop down in them comments below and share your thoughts with me. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.